I want us to get to your doubts, resistances, and expectations before we move into exercising your intuition muscle. All right. Does everybody come back? All right. So claircognizant is clear recognition. So this is the ability to know something without any prior experience of it. My 2-year-old daughter picked up a violin and started playing. Now, it wasn't a concerto, but it was pretty darn close. And her preschool teacher said, where has she been taking lessons? And I said, she's never taken lessons. My other daughter, for her, it was dance. She just dances. Now she's in dance. But for the longest time, she would just burst into dance and had no formal instruction. Think of a time in your life where you simply knew something. You knew the answer without any way of knowing it. You'd never learned about the French Revolution, but somehow you knew that what that person was saying wasn't correct, it was this. One of my favorite examples of clear cognizant from myself was when we were down in Arizona. Did I share this on Thursday night already? With the pots? No, that was last night's talk. So we're down in northern Arizona. We're at the Northern Arizona Museum, and there's all these beautiful artifacts from the peoples that used to live there, including this shelf with these little tiny pots, clay pots with patterns on them. And the sign says, we're not exactly sure what these are for, but we suspect that they were children's toys. And immediately, I turn to my daughter and I say, those aren't toys, those are samples. This is what the artist would take with him or her as they went around taking their orders. Here's what I can make for you, and it's going to be this big, but I'm sure as hell not going to drag this around the desert without knowing that you're going to buy it from me. So they made all these little ones, and then they took orders. They're samples.
So does that ever have anything to do with past lives, like when that comes up?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So like what you're really that knowing is because
Often, yes. Yeah, it can be that you've done that, you know that, you were there. And as soon as somebody says it, you go, oh, wait, I know all about that, because it is a memory that you have. And other times it can be you picking up on the information as it is in the energy field. So think of a time, let it come in. You got one, you know it's there, where you just either just knew that what somebody was saying isn't accurate, or you knew something about a subject or an ability that you previously didn't have any way of knowing about. And again, remember, you can come back to these too. If today you don't get a chance to fill these all in, I do encourage you to go back in your own quietude and do it. You want to be able to have these remembrances of these experiences. So they're all there for you. Claroflaction. That sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? You did what? It means clear smelling. Remember when we opened up our noses? This is the experience of smelling something like perfume or cigarette or cigar or food that nobody else in the room is smelling. My favorite example is a couple of days after my mother died. My grandmother and I both arrived in the kitchen at the same time, 7 o'clock in the morning, with the expectation that the other had been making coffee and bacon, because that's what we both smelt when we woke up, and it was my mother's favorite breakfast to make. We came into the kitchen and there was nobody making bacon or coffee. We were quite disappointed. Not as disappointed as my brother, who didn't get to smell it, and he felt quite left out. How come Mom didn't tell me? Looks like we've got a bit of a blank page there. You could draw something in here, do a little channeling.
it's on the top of the next page.
That's right. So your lines are, on the top of the page 9 for recording your claroflaction experience.
So your mother was always the one that made the coffee then?
She was.
Yeah. So
Yes.
the spirit was doing that.
Yep.
She
Yeah.
was there.
Absolutely. Yes, when I say the kitchen was empty, I mean there wasn't a physical person making breakfast. And it's kind of hard to drink spirit coffee. It's not really the same thing. It doesn't taste the same. So clear gustance is clear tasting. Same thing. You suddenly get a flavor in your mouth, a taste in your mouth, but you haven't eaten spaghetti in weeks. but why are you suddenly tasting spaghetti in your mouth? Well, it turns out that the person sitting across from you's grandmother's favorite food to make her was spaghetti. And Grandma's in the room. And Grandma knows that the best way for the person who's sitting across from you to believe that Grandma's in the room is by giving you something that she'll recognize. This is how spirit works. All these clairs are all the different ways that spirit, who's in non-corporeal form, communicates to you, through you, to the other person. It's always going to be something that they'll recognize, right? This is why it's so important when you do this work to not preface your shares with, I don't know what this means, but. Of course you don't know what it means. It's not for you, it's for them. So if I say, I don't know what this means, but I'm tasting spaghetti, I've immediately devalued the information. If I say, I'm tasting spaghetti, what does that mean to you? Then I'm being really clear.
For me, when I get things like that, I gotta go sit down and find out where I am up here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you all have your own way of doing this. Right? This is me sharing with you the way that I know it, and highly encouraging you to find out what your way is. With these clairs, I work with all of them. I have all of these experiences, and it's quite overwhelming at times. And then I ask them to back off. For some people, for some of you, it may be that you are clairvoyant, and that is how your information comes in. You see it as clear as day, and you can share that with them. It may be that you only ever hear things. Just let it be what it is for you.
You say you back off, like for me, I'll start to get a headache.
Mm-hmm.
That don't happen to me. So what happens to you when you say you back off?
Remember on Thursday night when you came up and you gave me a hug and you said, oh my gosh, you're so warm?
Yeah.
That's part of what happens to me. When I'm in a lot of energy, I start to get really, really hot. And my body starts to sweat and shed that energy. And it wasn't until I was up on the stage on Thursday night and beginning the presentation that I felt myself get grounded again. But in the swirl of everybody coming in and people talking and chatting, and it's a lot of energy, and I hadn't grounded myself enough before I started, so I felt myself moving in that as though I were in like a whirlpool or a river and being buffeted. So then I started to spray. The hug was helpful. I reminded myself, oh yeah, this is what happens when 40 people suddenly show up in a space.
Someone's gonna tell you.
Yeah. And there was a lot of energy in the room on Thursday night. Yeah, there was. Okay, so clear tasting. Now this is a less evident one. So if you're not remembering a time that you tasted something in your mouth, don't worry about it. And in fact, if any of these you're going, I don't think that's ever happened to me, don't, just let it be. Just don't worry about it. Okay? It may or may not. You may or may not remember. Everybody can do it but me. In every workshop I've ever taught, in every course I've ever taught, there is always at least one person who is utterly convinced that they can't do any of it. And they're so convinced, and they tell themselves it so often, that they end up having the experience of not being able to do it until we can move through whatever that is for them. And in every workshop I've ever done, and in every class I've ever taught, every single person goes through a moment of, well, that's not my experience, but that's never happened to me. Oh my God, I'm not intuitive. Well, it's the reason why the Confident Healer is now a 9-month program. And it could easily be a year long. It could be 2 years long. It takes a while to move through the doubts and the resistance and the belief that this isn't for you, that everyone else can do it but you. And each one of my students in that program has a breakdown at some point in those 9 months because it's just too much. It feels like it's too much, the doubt. They hear someone else's amazing dream, or they hear someone else's incredible psychic experience, and they're sitting there going, oh, I can't do this. Everybody else can do it but me. And because everybody goes through it, we can all be there for that individual as that comes up for them. What was that?
Is that a heads up?
That is a heads up. This program is not for the faint of heart. It is not an easy course. I will be very honest with you. It takes an enormous amount of commitment, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that you stay for those 9 months. You don't get to walk away for any reason. I had a student move to Ottawa, and we Skyped her in every month when we did the workshop. I'm not going to let you go. If you start this journey with me, you don't get to leave until you graduate as a mind, body, and soul healer, just so you know. That's my commitment to you. Clairtangency, let's keep going, is clear touching and is more commonly known as psychometry. That's when you pick something up and you go, wow, whew, that eagle was feeling pretty eagle-ish. I don't know what the eagle was feeling, but so it's a skill and a talent. Some people come by it naturally. Most of us have to practice it. And it's not my forte, I'll tell you that one. Clear touching is not my forte. Although, as I say that, I'm realizing it's so funny. There's spirit up there going, yes, it is. What do you think your intuitive energy massage is? Oh, right. Okay. For me, I do it with bodies. When I touch your body, I get information. For other people, it's picking up that beautiful antique cup and seeing a sudden image of the woman who loved that cup. All right, it's the story that the item is holding, the energy that the item is holding as it connects to its own creation and its creator or its use. Psychometry is often used in missing person cases. And believe me, every police department has somebody on staff that they consult when they can't solve that missing persons case. And that's one of the tools that those people will use is to touch their things and then see what information comes in. It's not work that I would choose to do. Anyone who does, I have total kudos for. What an amazing thing to be able to do. So, thinking of a time when you pick something up or you touch somebody and you got some information. Clairresonance is the next one. This is the ability to tap into a geographical place and sense, either for yourself, a past life connection, or some story that land or that geographical location is holding on to. It's similar to resonance. They're not that different, really. Clear relating and clear and resonant. Well, it is clear resonance. That's right. Never mind. It's clear resonance. That's when it resonates. You know what I mean. So you walk into a place and you feel the energy of the place. You recognize if it's good energy or if it's not good energy. Or you get a vision of what happened in that place. There's a church in downtown Victoria. The first time I walked past it, I had this almost pushback of some incredibly violent thing that occurred on those steps. And then as I started studying the history of Victoria, it turned out that there was a murder that took place on those steps back in the very early days after the church was built. And that energy is still there. No one's cleared it. Maybe even the people are still there. I don't know. I didn't go back. Let someone else do that. There are people whose entire specialty is in clearing the land of trauma. And that's what they do for a living, or clearing a building. Feng Shui uses clear resonance. If you're a Feng Shui practitioner, part of what you're tapping into is that ability to see a space and recognize how the energy could move better in that space with more ease. So try and think of a time when.
I was chased out of her room in London. In England.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
What was that like? Yeah.
It was horrible. I ran. Couldn't catch my breath. Something was chasing me.
Interesting. I'm curious, did it recognize you from when you had been there before in another lifetime? Or is that what that entity just likes to do?
It's funny because it happened to my husband too, but it didn't happen to anybody else.
Ah.
It's me and my husband.
Huh.
We both looked at each other and we did. And he said, "This is the weirdest thing."
Yeah. And when something like that happens, trust your instinct. Remember that first of the 5? Get the hell out of there. You don't need to be the one to I can see that. Yeah, you don't need to be the one to confront that, whatever that entity is. Trust your instinct. Get the heck out. All right. Clear cognizant. Clear cognition. Right, this is knowing the future. This is predictive. We're on page 10. So we just did clear resonance, and now we're looking at clear cognition. This is the predictive energies when you tap into one of the many possible futures for yourself or for somebody else. There are many futures. There is not just one option. When I do predictive work for my clients, I'm always very clear about that. Whatever you hear today is the most likely outcome from where we are right now. You can change it. That's what free will is the ability to change the story, to say, no thank you, or I don't actually need that anymore. I have a personal belief that we write our stories before we arrive, with some highlights in it, the big events that are going to occur, because they are important for them to occur. However, how we show up to those events is going to depend on what we've done on our way to those events. So my car accident could have been a lot worse if I hadn't already done a bunch of the things that I came here to do. It didn't need to be horrendous, but it still needed to happen because there were important events that occurred and flowed out from that happening. Does that make sense? You see how that works? Okay, so you know something, you've got a knowing. I knew when I was 20 years old, I even said it to my boyfriend at the time, who then became my husband and father of my children, who I now am not with any longer. I said to him, hey, you know what? We're going to be together for like a big chunk of time, like 20 years or so, which is a really long time when you're 20. And then there'll be a chunk of time when we're not together. And then there'll be some other kind of chunk of time where there is some kind of a being together again, but I don't know what that looks like. And he was furious with me. Why did you tell me that? I'm like, you don't want to know that? Oh, okay. And when we got to that point where we did the separating out, he reminded me of that. You remember when you said? So, a point in time where you knew. It did stick with him. Yeah, he didn't like knowing that. He was a bit paranoid. But here's the thing about predictive information. It can be helpful if it gives you the opportunity to be prepared. Right? I mean, there are some people who say, I don't want to know anything about my future. Don't tell me a thing. Okay, that's like walking into a room with all the lights out and expecting that you're going to figure out how to get to the other side of the room. Spirit gives us hints and clues all the time about the story we wrote, because it's your story. You have a right to know what you wrote in your story. You have a right to know what your script is. This idea, and this is my personal opinion, you don't have to agree with it, but the idea that we arrive here and we're wiped clean and we're not given any tools and techniques and memories to navigate this life seems really cruel to me. Why would we do that to ourselves, and why would we allow someone else to do that to us? This whole idea of predicting the future, it's actually illegal in Canada still. It's illegal in Canada still to claim to know the future, to predict the future. There are still laws on the books that could close down the gypsy van where she's giving you your tall, dark, and handsome.
And that's all come back from when they were burning witches.
Yeah. There's a lot of that there. There's a lot of fear. Yeah, absolutely. And there's this idea, and I when I say this, please know that I'm not religion bashing at all. But there is this idea that we've been taught that only God gets to know. And we're not allowed to know. And so when the Bible says, suffer not psychics, then that's not exactly how it says. I think it's something, suffer not, some other term that's used to describe. Seers, that's right. Suffer not seers. Well, hang on. I wrote the story. It's mine. And I'm here to do the best I can possibly do, to be the best me that I can possibly be. I wouldn't send my children out into the world without teaching them a few things and giving them a few skills. I don't believe a benevolent God or goddess would do the same to us either. But if we know, then the fear at the, let's call it the priestly level, is that we don't need them. And the thing is, we all need belief. Whether it's organized religion, or it's shamanism, or it's paganism, or it's whatever. We all need to believe in something that's bigger than ourselves. So it's not like we're ever going to not talk to God. And I don't really think God cares for the whole structure. That's a very human thing. But the human fear is that if I can't control you by telling you exactly what you're allowed to believe, then I'm not in control. And there's a lot of people who are human beings who want to be in control. And so they create these structures. Now, the structures aren't just there to control, though. They do give us structure. They give us a place to go. And so this is why I'm saying I'm not religion bashing. I think there's a reframe that would be really helpful and healing for a lot of people, though, in the understanding of what free will actually means. And that whatever tools are in front of us, it's okay for us to use them. Right? So it's okay for me to know that I was going to be in a car accident. It's okay for me to know that, because then I can decide consciously, all right, when that car accident happens, how am I going to respond to it? And we talked about this on Thursday night, about the third level of intuitive knowing, which is the wake-up call. My choice in that moment would be to either become a victim of circumstances and say, poor me, or to look at that silver lining and ask, what is this about? What do I need to learn here? What can I learn here? What could this be? What opportunities might this generate because of this experience? As you can tell, I feel very passionate about that part.
My father did me when I was a little boy. He says, when you're going on the road and the bridge is burnt out, he says, you start looking up and down the creek. You'll find another bridge. Another way to get it.
Right. Or you have a temper tantrum right at the bridge and go, whoa! Because that always works. At the place that we're staying right now in the Surfside, they've got a little motto up as you drive out, and it says, what does it say again? When nothing is going right, turn left. Good, I'm glad because I wanted to share that with you today. I thought that was so great. When nothing's going right, turn left. Okay, so how do you feel now about all the clairs? Do you feel like you've connected to some experiences that you may not have had a language for before or a definition for? Does that help you feel more confident in these gifts and abilities? Yet?
It's just like looking in the mirror. You know, it brings back all these different things that happened in life.
Mm-hmm.
When you're kind of putting it into one pot instead of it being spread all over the stove.
That's right, absolutely. And Ruth, you had your hand up.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm in the middle of reading a book called How Do You Know What Kind of Psychic You Are, or something like that. And this person is claiming there are 4 kinds. One's physical, one's emotional, one's spiritual. I forget the other one. Mental. Yes, thank you. So, for me, I'm understanding it, but it's not my experience.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's like, how do you feel about 4 different kinds or more of psychics?
I feel that that's pretty limited.
Yeah.
There's 7 billion people on the planet, so there's 7 billion different kinds of psychics on the planet. That would be my response. I think that it's good to have a starting point to be able to say, okay, this is my archetype, or this is my type of being psychic. Okay, I'm a clairvoyant, or I'm a clair empath, or it's a great place to start, but don't let it limit you. Don't let someone else tell you what kind of a psychic you are, but use that as a springboard. And it's the same for everything that you're learning here today too. Take this out into the world and go make it bigger for yourself.
For your own uniqueness.
That's right. Absolutely. When I teach the intuitive energy massage, I teach the technique And then the second level of that program is teaching, as much as it's possible, the students to hear and experience the energy of the intuitive energy massage. Right? So when I first learned Reiki, I learned the Usuri method of Reiki, and it's quite strict as to this is how you do it in order to call yourself a Reiki master. And it has to be done like this. And that's a respect thing. You do it like this because that's how the teacher taught it. And so to respect the teacher, you always do it like that. That worked for about 2 sessions for me. Because all this stuff was coming in that was not taught in the Usuri Reiki method. So I started to branch out with it and look for the explanation or the language that would describe what it was that I was experiencing as I was working on people, allowing my hands to move where I was directed. So now I have a technique, and I teach the technique because you need to have the foundational skills first. You need to feel comfortable with the basics before you trust the intuition that comes in for you. So I tell my students, learn that, and then you tell me what you're experiencing. And if you feel like it's better to go over here, or if you want to add a face massage to it, or you want to add something from your background, your experience, make it your own. Take it and make it your own. And that's what all of this is as well. Yeah. Was that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. How are we doing time? 3 o'clock already? What? No. Okay. We need to bend time now, everybody. Let's bend time. We're going to step outside of linear time. The ways of knowing. So we talked about how your body will never lie to you. And I'm going to say that over and over and over again. Your relationship with your body is really, really important as you open up to your intuition. Trust what your body is telling you. This is on page 10. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. I want you to go back on your own time, though, and get more grounded with it. So the physical clues as a way of knowing is the way that your body is talking to you, right? It's the goosebumps, it's the butterflies, it's the jitters, it's the sneezes, it's all those sorts of things. The mental clues, now we're on page 13. And you'll see this, it says, how does your body communicate with you? Take some time after the workshop to sit with that and really think and check in. How does my body communicate with me? What is it for me? And then make sure that you write that down for yourself. The mental clues are about what you think and how you think. This is a whole month or more of the Confident Healer. We do this work around the words that you're using, the things that you're telling yourself. How are you describing your story? Do you immediately fall into I can't? Are you working with what? How can I? We identify, we help you identify how it is you're thinking that you may not even be conscious of because it's so ingrained in you. And then we look at the other ways that you could be saying these things, right? So you know the I statements? Have you heard of this? I versus you. You make me feel. Instead of I feel this when you do that, right? That's very much what it's about. It's about owning what you think and feel and how you think and feel by using and becoming really conscious of those words and those thought patterns. What we are beginning to understand in a really profound way is how important our thoughts are. The biology of belief. That's required reading in the course, Bruce Lipman, and the work and research that he has done to really illustrate for us how powerful our beliefs are and the things that we tell ourselves. You know, the more often you tell yourself your shoulder hurts, the more your shoulder's going to hurt. And the pain is real, but really, how painful is it? And so it's not about denial. My shoulder doesn't hurt, my shoulder doesn't hurt, my shoulder doesn't hurt. Ow, really hurts. It's about, okay, what is this pain? What is it telling me?
Because your body's going to keep telling you until you actually ask that question.
That's right.
Listen to it.
That's right. And so, and what I teach is that every illness, injury, or condition, I can't remember what the third one is. These are all ways that your body communicates with you. You're not at the mercy, right? You're not at the mercy of external or even internal elements. You have the capacity to determine how you're going to live your life, what your experiences are. Now, having said that, it's not the easiest thing in the world. You can't just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful, I'm lovely, and everybody loves me, if you don't believe it. And if you don't know what the underlying beliefs are to the way in which you're thinking, it's going to be really challenging to change them. So part of what we want to do is get into what are these core limiting beliefs. What's holding up the house of cards? Because once we can pull out that source of that core limiting belief, everything changes. Literally the whole house of cards comes down and you've got a fresh new start. So that's where we're going to go next. We're going to quickly connect in with your emotional clues. This is the how do you feel, like where we were asking about discernment. How do you know if it's yours or somebody else's? So these are the emotional clues. This is on page 14. And answering that question, how do I feel most of the time? What is the story that you're telling yourself about how you're feeling? Are you generally a happy, positive person? Are you a trusting person? Are you a fearful person? How do you feel most of the time? And I don't mean just the surface, I'm fine. I don't mean the mask that you put on so that your emotional well-being doesn't affect other people. I'm fine. No, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Hi, what? No, everything's great. Is that called my happy face? This is my happy face. I'm so happy right now. Actually, I am. But for many years of my life, I wore my happy face 24/7. Only I wasn't happy. And I wasn't being true to that. I wasn't being honest with that. And it showed up as pain in my body. Excruciating, crushing pain in my body all the time. Because I wasn't being honest with myself. I wasn't acknowledging. And so my body said, look, we're going to hold this emotional pain for you, and then we're going to make you really, really uncomfortable until you pay attention and you change it.
I just found that instead of using all those equivalent words that we have in our English dictionary, is to change them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were saying pain,
Mm-hmm.
and change it to sensation.
Yes, absolutely. That's the power of words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 'cause I know some people that have to sit there and talk to them. Well, my nephew cut the end of his finger off. John, don't worry about it. I said, you got more blood in your body than what you're going to bleed out of there about. He just kept on getting worse. I couldn't get him to the Nanaimo hospital there and stop at Parksville. Go in there. So then what do? Put him in an ambulance and send him to the Nanaimo. Then, 2 months later,
Yeah.
she'll listen to you.
Yes. And so this becomes a practice of replacing the words that you're used to using and looking for something else that changes the vibration of not only the word, but your experience of it.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect example. So pain becomes sensation. Hard becomes challenging. You'll notice that I don't say it's hard very often. And if you tell me how hard it is, I might agree with you. I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. That can be really challenging. And I'll keep saying it. Because what do you do with a challenge?
Try to overcome it.
Where you work through it, you try to overcome it, you face it, it's kind of exciting, it's a challenge. If something is hard, you're done. Nothing's going to move. It's hard. Might as well just give up now. Can you feel, even just in saying that, in joke we're saying it, and yet that energy is very palatable. You're going to start noticing as you work on your own wording how often other people use those low vibration words, and I promise you it's going to drive you crazy for the first little while. And you'll start doing that, you'll start correcting them.
Correcting yourself, like
Mhm.
when you first start,
Yeah.
you really notice all the things that you were doing that were more negative than positive to move forward. How can you when you're still stuck
Yeah,
that way?
absolutely. And when you come across somebody who's still really stuck in that negative speaking, be sure to put your shields up and do your clearing afterwards, because words will stick just like energy will. Because they are energy. So they'll stick as well. So environmental clues is the last one of our ways of knowing. And this is, so I say here, to enhance your perception of environmental clues, pay attention to the presence of synchronicity. You have a thought, you say yes to an idea, and all of a sudden everything falls into place. Or high self and spirit is trying to get your attention, and they'll start lining things up for you. Right? For me, it was the hearts. I needed a symbol so that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was following my heart. Guess what? It turned out to be hearts. So obvious, right? Feathers. When I was getting close to stepping out of that marriage and relationship that I describe in the book, I started seeing feathers everywhere. More than could be accounted for by the fact that I live in a seaside town. They were piles of them in front of me. Freedom. Flight, and not flight in a scary way, like, okay, it's time. We're pushing you out of the nest. You know, everything's in place. Go, you'll be fine. We'll look after you. We'll catch you. It'll be fine. So feathers became really important. And then feathers became part of the healing work that I do, working with the energy of feathers. So looking in your environment for signs, symbols, and synchronicities. Okay? All right, let's get to the meat of it now. We're going to talk about doubt, resistance, and expectations. This is the fun part. It's all fun. Okay, move over. We're going to page 16 now. We're going to start with doubt. How many people in the room have ever doubted themselves? Never. Never. No. It's a natural part of being human, is to doubt. And to doubt is not a bad thing. I want you to change your relationship with the experience of being in doubt. Sometimes we're in doubt because the doubt is actually holding us here because we're not ready to be here. We don't have all the information yet. We haven't met all the right people yet. Nothing or not everything is in place. So even though we've said yes to the big dream, we're not here. There's these things that have to happen first. And so our own self-doubt serves to hold us here so that those things can come to us, right? It's the same thing with resistance, and it's the same thing with expectations. These are not negative things. Because you doubt doesn't make you not sure or good or, any of the things that we would associate with that.
It just shows you that the answer isn't there at the moment.
You're not ready yet.
Exactly. Either the answer hasn't showed up yet. There's this wonderful thing called divine timing. I love divine timing. Divine timing is, it requires patience to be in divine timing, right? Right. So we're in this experience right now where we've been rent-evicted. Some of you heard the story already. That's a real pull the rug out from underneath you. 2 kids, a dog, a home business, and now we don't have a place to live. And there's that whole Victoria real estate market. A few people have said, come up here. Come up here instead. So we don't know. I don't know where we're going to be in 4 months. I don't know. I know where we're going to be for the next 4 months, so that's good. But I don't know. And I'm okay most of the time being in the energy of I don't know. Because when you're okay being in the energy of I don't know, it means you're open to things as they come towards you.
Because if you were all in fear again and anxious about what's going to happen next, then that's going to attract you even more.
Exactly. Yeah. So I could be saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Or I can say, I don't know. I trust that the perfect place will show when we're ready to look for it. It will show, but we're not ready to look for it. And very well-meaning people and friends and family since December have said, what about this place? Oh, I found you this place. You should look at this place. And I just say, thank you. We're not ready yet to even look at what you're giving us. We're not ready. We have to do this and this and this first. Then we'll look. Then you can start throwing things at me. But in the meantime, it's okay for me to be in the energy of, I don't know. I have doubted that I made the right choices at the time that I was making them. To take this month and not have a place to live, leave my children with their dad in Victoria. But guess what came of it? This tour and having the time and space to do this tour, which we started organizing in November, without really knowing how we were going to have that week away from the girls and how that was all going to work out. Somehow it did. And here we are. So your doubts are not necessarily telling you something's wrong. It's just that you don't know. That's why you doubt. So you just don't know. That's all. Now, we do have what I call our doubting demon. And this is the aspect of ourselves that wakes us up at 3 o'clock in the morning, going, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Did you make the right choice? And it was one morning at 3 o'clock in the morning where I bolt upright in bed with all this anxiety and worry of, what am I going to do? And I heard, I'm your doubting demon. Okay, me being me, I go, oh, interesting. Okay, what's your name? She said, Danny. Just like that, Danny. It's not Danielle, it's Danny. I said, okay, Danny. How can we work together? Why are you here? Listen to the doubts. Answer them. Right? The doubts come from, there are things like, who am I to create a deck of oracle cards and create a healing toolkit? Who am I to do that? I doubt that I could do that. Who am I not to? Who are you not to? Right? So when the doubts come up, you answer the doubts. I doubt you can do this. I think I can. I'm up for the challenge, Danny. Let's see what we can do with one another. So I want you to, in a split second, write down the name of your doubting demon. What's their name? First thing. Boom. What comes in? Don't think about it. Don't be doing this. If you do this, I know you're thinking. Yes.
What if there's a name, but just a feeling, or a voice, but not a particular name with it?
Give it a name.
Oh, okay. Then have to think.
And it doesn't have to be some highfalutin God name, or, Bob, George, Susie, Sammy, Carol. Could even be your own name. Don't think about it. What's the first name that comes into your mind when I say to you, what's the name of your doubting demon?
This is the big blank.
There's resistance. We're getting resistance.
There's no voice, like a voice. I know
Okay.
exactly the situation
Okay.
I'm thinking of, but it just...
Okay, somebody else ask Gundred what her doubting demon is. I'm not even going to look. Somebody else ask her.
What's your name of your doubting demon?
Honestly, there's no create one. And that was
Yes, you will have.
that's fake, but you...
No, it's not. That's your imagination. That's not fake.
Oh,
What do you want to name it?
Make it up. Is it male or female?
I think it was a male.
Okay. Make it up. John, there we go. See, that wasn't so hard. Like pulling teeth. I love it. Susan, what's...
Much about that, because what I put down here was shit. What happened, removing my boat, to put the motor back in it, where the lift was, it got overhauled, and going alongside the sailboat, my nephew's in front pulling, and I'm in the back, and pushing, pulling with a rope, and I slipped on the sailboat. Shit! Wow! Keith, he said, I knew what was happening. I didn't even have to turn around and look.
That's a valid name. You can call it that. Susan, what was yours?
Devin.
Okay, Diane?
Trixie.
Nice. Trixie, good one. Ruth?
Doubting Dinah.
Doubting Dinah. Bonnie?
Henry,
Henry, beautiful. Leanne?
Jessica.
Okay.
Sadie.
Sadie?
Samuel,
Okay.
Edward,
Edward. Very,
Ralph,
he's very, Edward is very, it's very proper. Yes. Lynn?
Ralph,
Ralph? Okay.
Cora.
Cora? John?
John, I guess.
John, we guess it's John. I doubt that it's John, though. I doubt it. Doubting John.
Sammy,
Okay.
Dave,
You heard mine?
And we heard yours. Perfect. And you know who mine is. Okay, how about resistance, which we've just had a beautiful demonstration of. What does that feel like when I say resistance? What's the first thing that your body feels like? Like digging your feet in? Yeah, and tight in here. trying to pull a dog to the bath if they don't like to be bathed, or a kid to the bath if they don't like to be bathed. Really having to convince somebody of something because they're resistant to the idea or to the change. Change is something that a lot of people have a lot of resistance to.
Is it for yourself? What does resistance
Yep.
look like?
What does resistance look like for you?
Procrastination.
Procrastination. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to add that in here. That's beautiful. Yeah. Procrastination. Excellent. I shouldn't do this. It's dangerous to trust my intuition. I feel foolish. Other people will think I'm nuts. People will be afraid of me if I know more than they do. You know, when your doubts come up and your resistance comes up, there's a conversation going on inside your mind. You're having a conversation. And you're saying things like this, or whatever it is that you would say to yourself around that. You know? I'll get to it later. I'll do it later. Because there's a resistance. What if resistance, your resistance, was actually your signpost that that's the direction that you need to be going in? That the only reason you're resisting it is because you haven't created that awareness. You don't believe it's possible for you, and your doubting demon is coming in and chiming into the conversation about that. Procrastination, that's brilliant. I'm definitely adding that in. So it's so perfect, isn't it? Have you ever heard the term eat that frog? There's a wonderful little book that's entitled that. It's a little guidebook, probably no bigger than these cards. And the whole philosophy is this: do the thing that you are resisting most first, because then everything else is easier after that. Right? What is, somebody be brave, what's something in your life right now that you know you're resisting?
Mine's writing my book.
Ah, good example. Why are you resisting writing your book?
Well, the reason why I came here
Uh-huh.
is to ask you right now in my mind what it is the program in which to start to even write it.
Okay. So writing her book. Susan's going to write a book. Susan has a book inside of her. She's known that for a long time, right?
A lifetime.
Yeah. And when you've asked people, they've said, yeah, you have a book inside of you. Right?
Yeah.
People can see it. Some people can see that. Yeah. Anyone who's intuitive could see that she has a book inside of her. I love it when that comes up for clients in a session. And I say, oh, by the way, that book that you're going to write, how did you know about that? Because I can see it inside of you. So the question then becomes, how can you? Not why aren't you? How can you? How can you write it?
Well, I'd like to get the tools to be able.
Okay. What's getting in the way of getting the tools?
I've tried a couple different programs and they're just not. It doesn't look right.
Why do you need a program?
Program. I guess because I want to have it instantly looking the way that I want it.
So it has to be
That's
perfect.
That's yeah. That's
Right.
the problem. Yeah.
And if it doesn't look exactly the way you want it to look,
Yeah.
then there's no point in even trying. Right.
No, it's time. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely, I'm.
Right.
It's time.
So if it's time, stop looking for a program.
I know my message is just do it.
Just do it.
It's what keeps on coming
Yes.
through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without looking outside yourself for a structure to fit yourself into, because all that's going to do is to serve that procrastination energy. And the procrastination energy is coming from those messages that are going on way in the back of your mind, coming from a core limiting belief about, could be any kinds of things. It could be the fear of, this is going to be hugely successful and what do I do then? Or no one's ever going to read it and then what do I do? Or whatever the excuses are. And remember what we said, like, don't make yourself wrong about it. The excuses are there because there's something deep down that's in the way, and all that that's doing is keeping you safe in what you know. We're going to talk a little bit about ego when we get to that point, and I hope to blow your minds with my personal belief about the ego. when we get to that point. Okay? So we're gonna come back to this. Okay? Take
That's very interesting on the news this morning that they were talking about how many people now are writing books and they're not going through these big book companies. They're just going and doing the whole thing themselves and how successful they are.
Yeah. Things are changing. The rules are changing. And our expectations are changing. Expectations is, well, okay, first of all, let's talk about our back peddler before we move on to expectations. And then I want to remind me, Susan, because I want to share something about that may be helpful for you. Your back peddler. This is what I call that aspect of yourself that resists. This is your back peddler, right? I'm moving as far away from that thing that I desperately want to do as I possibly can because I have these limiting core beliefs about what will happen or that I'm not capable or whatever it happens to be. So name your back peddler, same process. Name your back peddler, make it up, use your imagination, give it a name. So by the time you leave here, you're all going to have these multiple personalities. Well, you may have very well have. So your back peddler. Same process. Tom, we'll start with you this time. What's the name of your back peddler?
Oh, happy. It's every time I try backpedaling, I trip and fall. So I say, heck with that. I just keep a good humor. Just like I look around in here, just before when we just first started this, and all the people that were smiling and laughing, it made me feel good.
So happy is the name of your back peddler?
Yeah.
I love it. All right, Cheryl.
Eddie.
Eddie.
Dick.
Dick? That's awesome. Then you can say, piss off, you dick.
Devin.
Devin, very good.
Rodney.
Rodney.
Quicksand.
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 Quicksand, good. Yeah,
It's not a name, but
it is a name now. Why not? Hey, there's a superhero called Quicksilver. Why not Quicksand? Absolutely. Yeah.
Ben,
Ben? Okay.
I got Sammy, but it really bugged me because Samuel was the first one. Yeah, it's just another name for the same one.
Huh. Well, you're onto something there, but we'll
Yeah.
get to that later.
Francis.
Francis, I love it.
Chuck.
Chuck. Good.
Anna.
Anouk. Very nice.
I don't know.
Then that is the name,
Why does it have to have a name?
because it's part of the exercise.
Oh.
You can stamp your feet as much as you want about this, but it's my workshop, it's my exercise. Why are you so resistant to giving it a name?
Sometimes when.
So I don't know. What was that, Lynn?
Sometimes naming it is claiming it.
Yes, it is. You're absolutely right. That's why we're giving it a name. I was going to get to that after, but it's okay that it's come in now. No, that's totally fine. When we name something, we claim it, we own it. It doesn't have power over us anymore. It's not some nebulous feeling that we don't know what to do with. We start to recognize it. Oh, that's doubt. I'm feeling doubt right now. I need to have a conversation with Danny. And however foolish you may feel having that conversation with Danny or whoever, just give yourself a little bit of a break, right? Stop taking yourself so seriously. Okay, so you've got doubts. All right, let's look at the doubts. Let's see what they are. Because when you can have that conversation with these aspects of yourself, you're creating a relationship and a knowing of who you are. These are all just ways that you show up in the world. And some days you show up in doubt, and some days you show up in resistance. Some days you show up in expectation. Some days you show up in anger or frustration or empathy. These are words that we use to understand. It's a language that we have to understand and give meaning to the things that we are feeling and experiencing of being human. And I don't know is a perfect name for your resistance.
Well, I thought of one, Gerald.
Oh, Gerald. Okay, there we go. Here's another one. When you come up with an I don't know, reframe that question to a statement. I'd love to know. I'd love to know the name of my back peddler. And then just let it come in. without forcing it. I know I'm putting you on the spot with all of this, but that's part of the fun. And you're in the hot seat because you're here to change and make connections with your clarity and your flow and your intuition, and it's not always going to be comfortable. But you're in a safe container here to do it today. Diane.
Gunter popped into my mind, or Igor.
Ooh, I like both of those.
Yeah.
Gunter, Igor.
They're kind of bully names.
Excellent. Excellent. And Susan? Blair. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. You were going to remind me of something that I was going to tell you about the process. Oh, writing a book. Oh, yes. Okay. This because it flows into expectation. That's why I wanted to remember it, which is the next one. Your inner critic. Who has an inner critic? Not me. No, I don't have an inner critic. With your inner critic, yeah. Well, your inner critic says things like, I should get this right on my first attempt, and it should be perfect. That's the kind of thing your inner critic likes to say to you. This is not good enough, the way this is right now. You've got it. My inner critic showed up yesterday. I was at WTF Source in Parksville, one of the metaphysical shops that's carrying our books, and I'm doing a reading, a oracle card reading for a woman. And there in the description of one of her cards, in the book that we've published with Balboa and Hay House that went through 2 editors, and I don't know how many times we reread everything, there's a sentence that starts with a small t. Oh, seriously? And there rose up my inner critic. I said, see? Look, it's not good enough. You're going to have to correct that. And it took a couple of moments for me to recognize that voice. And then I said, oh, yeah, oh, that's who you are. You know, I think it's going to be okay. I don't think it really detracts from the message. I don't think it really is going to ruin someone's healing journey because that is not a capital T.
I was just testing.
That's right. That's right. So another thing around expectations that I wanted to say in terms of writing a book and how things have changed so much, my stepmother and then a dear friend of mine, both of who are traditionally published authors, have their nose so far out of joint because I chose the route of self-publishing, didn't jump through all the hoops of what I would have to have done had I submitted my manuscript to a traditional publisher, and have sold more copies of my book than they have of theirs. Because they have this idea, this huge snobbishness, and I love them both dearly. I say this with total love in my heart. And they know this about themselves. They have this huge idea, this expectation that an author does this. A writer does this. How dare I call myself an author when I haven't done this? I've done it this way. It takes a long time to get a book published this way. This way, self-publishing route is as valid a journey and is as valid a way of bringing your message out to the world. And you still go through hoops. We had professional editors, but we did everything ourselves. The photography, the layout, the design, it's all our own. And the really nice thing is that there's nobody there telling us that's not right. You're not doing it right. Instead, we get to learn that for ourselves. We get to discover what works and what doesn't work.